Yeah, this movie is wild, dude. This movie is really wild.
I had never heard of this before. I guess I didn't realize it was like apparently like a what did they like win at Sundance or something? It was like apparently pretty well known, I guess.
Yeah,
It was the film that was kind of the inspiration of the episode, and we'll talk in more depth about it later, The Queen of Versailles. Yeah, it won a bunch of awards, and I probably saw it around the time that it came out. And again, it's super compelling, and if you can access it, it's available for free on a couple of different the streaming sites now, and it kind of bumps around in various different online formats. But definitely a recommendation. It's just like the sheer amount of like access and everything that they get is so intense, and it's such like they're so like open and not, I wouldn't say like fully introspective, but they are like the couple that's profiled in it do just like kind of show everything in a way that is such a weird thing to do, given not only like just the content of it, but like the time that it came out. And it's one of those. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say specifically there was a spot, like not even with them, but like there was a spot at the very end, I guess, where it was like one of his oldest son they were interviewing, and like,
oh god,
he says something at the end though. It was like it's like, yeah, it's just we can't let the owners of the timeshares in the building know that the building's foreclosed on. Like we count on their money week to week,
Right.
Yeah. There's a number of moments in the documentary where it feels almost like, is what they're saying like illegal? Like this seems like they're just very open about their finance crimes, which is I think one of the reasons why it's so compelling, because in a weird way, like I do think when you have that much money and that much wealth, right, like you do probably just feel like weirdly protected in a way where like if I don't know, like, or maybe it's just you get used to having cameras and shit around you over, because the documentary was made over a course of several years.
Yeah.
Maybe you just get used to it and you kind of let your guard down or something. A lot of weird shit comes up in this that is surprising. And anyway, so when I first saw it, I was like, stunned and like, wow, this is really great. And I just never really thought about it again until probably earlier this year. I showed it to Carrie for the first time, and it was the first time I'd seen the movie in what now, like fucking almost 10 years, and we were both just like floored by it. And then it's like you look into where they are now, and it's like, oh, of course, like they're fine. Like there's no consequences for anything. Anything. They're back on top, all that shit. As a little preview for the arc of this episode that is going to probably equally be depressing.
Yeah, I mean, I think also part of it, and I looked this up like after we rewatched it, like some of the stuff that they're talking about that like sounds illegal and crazy to us is just legal, right? So then they might have those moments where they then like let their guard down on other stuff because they're doing so much shit that's just like unthinkable to a normal person. Like the part where he talks about like buying his own debt for like a fraction of what he owes, and like that sounds illegal, but I had to like look it up. It's not illegal. It's totally legal to do that. So
very legal, very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, too, the other thing about the documentary, right? It's not just the content; it is like the skill, right?
Yes.
The person who made it is Lauren Greenfield, and there's such a not just a skill in like the interviewing, but like especially like the editing and the pacing of like overlaying like them talking and stuff. I think after we watched that, we were me and you, Carrie, a few months ago or something. Yeah. And then we saw like she made another film called Generation Wealth, and we watched it and we were like, oh, this is kind of boring. What a shame. Like it's not quite as compelling, but
yeah, that one was good in the beginning, but it like got a little bit, there was like no like synthesis of the stuff at the end to like really bring it together. But it was still interesting. Like I think that the subject matter that she picks is just like really interesting to me. But in this one, it was like really skillful filmmaking.
Yeah,
especially
I think that one of the more compelling parts about this one that I imagine would have been absent from any film that she was, in charge of making was that like all of the various side characters and their stories, like the people
Yes,
who are
yeah.
like, actually, you know, as much as this guy fucking David Siegel and his wife like bitch and moan around about how hard things are for them, you know, meanwhile, like the other people that are profiled in the movie, like their nanny and their limo driver and like her high school
the limo
friend and like
driver,
all, you know, all
Jesus.
these other like totally, you know, average normal people and you know what they're going through during the 2008 recession.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That really kind of brings it all together. It really, you know, the contrast there of their stories and then the stories of the Siegels.
It is
And
just deeply sad. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say unbelievable timing too, right? Just like
Sure.
as especially at the time when I watched it, you know, as a filmmaker, I was thinking like, what fucking luck that you start making a movie about this gaudy, you know, modern robber baron trying to make the most obscene and large house in America, and then the recession hits. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that's the story we're gonna get into. So away we go.
Now when I was a young boy, about the age of 5, my teachers taught me I could be the greatest man alive. They told me I could change the world, be whatever I wanted to be. There was no one in the world like me. Every one of us was so unique. I'd not be an average man. No, sir, I'd be no average man. So I had those big dreams.
Welcome back, everybody, to Eat the Rich, the show about our political economy, late-stage capitalism, and the millionaires, billionaires, and multinational corporations hell-bent on staving off its death rattle. I'm Shane, and tonight we have with us Chris
Howdy.
and Carrie.
Hello there.
So this is a fun one, hopefully, and a depressing one, like they all are, I suppose. But the origin of kind of talking about this came up, as we mentioned, you know, there's this film, The Queen of Versailles, that came out in 2012 that sort of profiles David Siegel and his wife Jacqueline. And the reason why it came up again in our discussions and sort of talking and thinking about putting together a show for it is a few weeks ago when we did the Gilded Age Garbage Part 2 show. Chris, you were talking about the Biltmore estate.
Yes.
And one of the things that's notable about the Biltmore estate, as a number of these like weird old Gilded era mansions being built, is that happens to be the largest house in America. Mm-hmm. Now, the Versailles house that from which the name the Queen of Versailles is derived, is this house that David and Jackie Siegel were working on and still are. A little spoiler alert there. But that, if it ever is actually completed, will bump the Biltmore house out of that number one spot, if I'm not mistaken. It will be the largest house in America, and it is modeled after the Palace of Versailles in France. And it's built in Florida, where they live. And as we mentioned in the intro, like, the documentary chronicles all of this in just incredible detail, and you see this like giant gaudy fucking house that they start building in the height of the Bush era boom. And then the documentary takes you through the time of the recession, and this house just ends up in this like derelict state.
Yeah,
as just this like horrible eyesore.
Yeah.
In this like uber rich community
Just
in Florida.
as hollow and just fucking gutted as they are, and as their lives.
Yes. Which makes it this unbelievable metaphor, which is again why, you know, I highly recommend, if you're listening to this, if you get a chance to, definitely check out the film. But so it's a topic that we wanted to talk about. Again, we'll talk a lot about the little details and stuff that are brought up in the film in that era. But to start us off, I figure I'll go into a little bit of the background of who David Siegel is, and where he got his money and how he kind of ended up becoming, you know, this like uber rich, modern era Gilded Age freak. So David Siegel was born in 1935. So he's quite old. He's 86 years old now.
Wow.
And, you know, he was in his early mid-70s at the time that they were filming this film. But he was born in 1935 in Chicago to his mother, Sidel, and his father, Sid Siegel. And his dad was like a middling businessman. He was a grocery store owner. And when David was 10, he moved the family from Chicago to Miami in 1945. And I was trying to find, like, you know, information on David Siegel's, like, early life. There's not a lot there. What you can find is, again, stuff that's brought up in that documentary and other interviews and stuff. And it's a very, like, similar thing that we've talked about a lot on the show. It's just sort of like, I grew up not having a lot, which seems to be mostly the case in the sense that his father, you know, was, like, a middle-class businessman. You know, he didn't grow up uber wealthy. And then the other added element that is brought up in a weird, it's such a weird thing because it's brought up in a kind of bitter tone in the documentary, but at the same time, it's like the inspiration for greatness, right? Is that the reason why they were kind of always broke, even though the dad owned like a moderately successful grocery store, is because the dad and mom like went to Vegas all the time and they gambled all their money away at Vegas. And, you know, they would go there and they would be treated like, you know, royalty or whatever because they'd spent so much money there. They would get all these comps and tickets and free rooms and stuff, and they would gamble away all the money. And so somehow that metastasized in David's mind to the idea that would eventually make him filthy rich. But before all of that happened, he goes to college for a little bit to study marketing. He eventually drops out. He gets married for the first time in 1961 to a woman named Geraldine Sandstrom. He has 3 children with her, including his son Richard, who Chris, you mentioned during the intro, but he'll come up again.
In the documentary.
But he gets divorced in 1968, and then he gets remarried in 1970 to his high school sweetheart named Betty Tucker. Now, this is interesting. He's in the 7-year marriage. He has 3 kids. He gets divorced, then he marries his high school sweetheart, and she had also gotten divorced from her first marriage. And then his second marriage with her lasts only a few months. And around this time is also when he starts his first company, his real estate company called Central Florida Investments. And this is going to be like the seed upon which he kind of builds out his wealth. And around this is the time when he moves from Miami to Orlando. And that's where he spends most of his life. And that's where he builds most of his fortune in and around the sort of like Central Florida. In 1973, he gets back together with Betty, and they get married again. So Betty is his second and his third wife. And at this point, they have another child. And then so together, they kind of grew this company, Central Florida Investments, or CFI, and they start buying up real estate and flipping it. And one of their ventures is this weird thing called the Mystery Funhouse.
I saw this
in Orlando.
I saw this.
Which,
yeah.
If you have any other details about it, I mean, I have a few minor ones, but
there was. I thought. I remember. I read one thing like. I can't remember if it was like Grandpa Simpson or the guy, or Grandpa Munster, or the guy who played the dad. But like, I guess they had like one of the actors from the Munsters, like featured at the park.
Okay,
yeah. Because I'm looking it up right now. I can't remember if it was the grandpa. I'm trying to remember his name. It's Al something, I think. But like, he like traded off of the Grandpa Munster character for the rest of his life. Like he would show up to anything as Grandpa Munster and like be that character.
Yeah, it's a very weird kind of like sideshowy attraction.
Yes.
I did find one video that looks like some kind of like promo video made in the 80s. Unfortunately, it has no narration, so it's not really worth playing for you guys now. But I'll drop it here in the Discord. You guys can kind of maybe watch it in the background. It's just got some music and stuff. And maybe we can include it in the show description as well if people care to watch it. But it's like a little like carnival sideshowy thing. And the location that it's at is it's across the street from Universal Studios, which I guess is where it gets a lot of its foot traffic. But this is like one of their early successes. And it's like, again, it's got a lot of like sideshowy stuff. It's got like what you would imagine in like a spook house at a carnival.
This is horrific looking. It's
later on they added like a Chuck E. Cheese knockoff thing.
It is, by the way, I just looked it up. It was Al Lewis, who was the grandpa on the Munsters.
Okay.
He was a member. Yeah, he worked at this place. Like he was like part of their cast or something.
Oh, that's sad.
As the doing Grandpa Munster like
as the
20 years after the show was off the air.
Very like hokey and lame. And again, it was amusing to me that he had the knockoff like a Pizza Palace thing with like an animatronic like show similar to the
Pizza Palace,
the Chuck E. Cheese or Billy Bob Pizza, whatever the hell that's called. But in any case, so this is like they start making a little bit of money doing this. But where the real money starts to come in for him is in 1982, he founds Westgate. And the story for this, as he relays in the documentary, is when he was selling different plots of land, he had like an orange grove. And some guy came to him and wanted to buy the orange grove or part of it to set up a timeshare thing. And David Siegel had never heard about timeshares, so he asked him what it was. The guy explained it to him, and he thought, wow, that's a great idea. I'll just do that. So instead of selling the property, he developed his own timeshare resort on this orange grove, and it seemed to be a big success for him. In the first year, the sales made $7 million.
Wow.
And by 1997, it was making $300 million in sales a year. And it gives you a sense of over, that kind of 15-year period, the trajectory of growth of this company. The reason why I have that figure from 97 is because that's also the year where he now divorces Betty, or rather, she divorces him. And I have some interesting kind of backstory to explain this from this profile of him written in 2009 for Orlando Magazine by Mike Boslett and Jim Leusner, titled Mr. Big. And I'll read this little section here about the divorce proceedings. Siegel backed out of the initial divorce settlement offer, totaling about $45 million in cash and real estate. The divorce settlement fight, appeals, and related cases lasted 9 years. The dispute featured a sideshow involving Siegel suing several top former executives, who later formed their own rival timeshare company, for allegedly giving him bad financial advice about the value of his company during the divorce. Betty ultimately won perhaps the biggest divorce settlement in U.S. history, cash and real estate valued at more than $200 million, including the 36,600 square foot mansion they built on Lake Butler.
Jesus.
The settlement actually cost Siegel $300 million, with taxes. It stifled Westgate's growth in the late 1990s because profits went to pay Betty, Siegel says. Since remarried, Betty Whitaker did not respond to requests for comment for this story. Betty's divorce attorney, Mayan Dowes, says her client wanted out of the marriage because she grew tired of living on the edge. Quote, he always pushed his chips to the center of the table, Downs says of Siegel's business style. His entire life was a crapshoot. She is free from the situation David is in now. She wanted security. Downs says Siegel has a knack for finding great business deals and talented executives to work with him, but she says he often gets in his own way. Quote, I always said David was an idiot savant. He has a genius for the deal. It's not because of his qualities, it's in spite of them. Siegel says Downs was, quote, very tough on him in the litigation, but she did a great job for his ex-wife. He and his lawyers have since referred clients her way. That doesn't sound like the behavior of a ruthless dictator. People say I'm ruthless. I'm not ruthless, Siegel says. Some say I'm litigious, and I'm not litigious. I'm not any of the things people say who don't know me, he says. I'm the most misunderstood person in Orlando. I like to build things and try to help people.
This is very, all of this language is very Trumpy. Very Trumpy, yeah.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot of allusions to Trump in this guy's personality, and it's not surprising in that regard that he considers himself a personal friend of Trump. He brings Trump up quite a lot in the documentary. Again, this is way before Trump's political career or anything, just when they were both kind of like real estate scumbags. This is obvious that they ran in similar circles.
Fun fact also, Jackie Siegel briefly dated Trump.
I saw that.
There you go.
I saw that.
There you go.
Very
Part
much
of the
in the
deal,
same
baby.
circles.
So, yeah, in 98, the year after this divorce begins, he marries Jackie Siegel, who was former Miss Florida winner in, I believe, 1993. And an interesting side note, too, is that now, because of the wealth of her husband, she now owns the contest.
She
the
does?
beauty pageant. Yeah, she owns it, apparently. But before I go a little bit more into then in the next preceding years, which are really then the boom years that transform Siegel from just a multimillionaire into like a billionaire or quasi-billionaire status, maybe really briefly, Carrie, do you want to explain like what timeshares are? Because we've brought them up on the show before, and it is like the entire business model upon which his empire is built.
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what kind of timeshare he does, but like in a general sense, you're buying partial ownership of a property, right? So you pay some amount of money. I think the figure that they give in this documentary for his timeshares is at a minimum, I think it's $8,900 to get like 3 days every other year in a specific property. So it is like a complete ripoff. You're paying a lot of money over probably a long period of time to get like a few days per year at a certain property. And the way that he was saying that they do it is they're basically just borrowing insane amounts of money to like build these places, and then
to get the illusion of luxury too. Is like he's very emphatic about that. In that like they're paying like what's his line? It's like if you can't be rich, like the second best thing is feeling rich, right? And so that's So you've got like totally average normal people, and he's getting them to pay like you mentioned, fucking like $9,000 to stay in this like this very luxurious sort of resort looking room with like a fucking big screen projector and all the bells and whistles and all that type of stuff. But yeah, ultimately it's a grossly inflated price.
But I think that line that you mentioned is such a good insight into his psychology, because the next thing that he said after that was, and if you don't want to feel rich, you're probably dead.
Yes.
Like to him, the appearance and that feeling of like feeling rich and powerful is like the most important thing. And he can't imagine somebody not wanting that. But yeah, they are basically just ripping people off. And the son kind of says that in a more naked way.
Yes.
Yeah, he calls them, what does he call them? Mooches. Yes.
Mooches, yeah. Because part of the business model, and this is not Siegel's invention.
No.
All timeshare schemes do this, and you've probably encountered this if you've ever been on a vacation at a hotel or
if you've ever been to Disney,
something.
You've definitely encountered like get free tickets.
And what it is, it's like you get some kind of offer for some kind of gift, usually tickets to a show or some kind of voucher or something for the vacation area, and what you have to do in return is attend like a seminar and a tour that that's like a few hours in your morning or whatever or your lunchtime, in which it's essentially a long sales pitch.
Yeah, it's a high pressure sales pitch. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and they try very aggressively to get you to do it. And one of the things that they do is they create this like very bullshit like financial model based upon this idea of like how often are you taking vacations? What are you spending on those vacations? And they run the numbers and they say like, well, if you can afford to do this, wouldn't you much rather afford to do this? And then they say, instead of like getting a motel that's like crappy or whatever, instead, if you take a vacation every year. And again, it's one of those things where it's a highly inflated price, and it maybe makes sense if you already have quite a lot of money and I don't know, like you are vacationing that often to take advantage of that space.
But like also like in the same place.
Right.
In the same place every year.
Yeah.
And I believe that part of the model also is like, don't you have to rent it for the same time at the same place every year? Yeah.
It's the same date, and I think even in their case, some places I think it's every year, but in their case they specifically say every other year.
Right. So, that's like the minimum, and then the maximum it's like $100,000 or something you spend, and you got to
kind of like a week over New Year's every year.
And again, the only way in which it actually makes sense is if you have so much money that you're vacationing that often, and if you did, you would probably just have your own apartment, or you just buy
or rent a penthouse.
Right, exactly. Like there's not, and specifically they're targeting, in the way they put it, in 2012, they're targeting people who are making like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
People are working families who are going on vacations, and that's where the stuff with his parents come into play, right? Because the way in which his parents are talked about, right? Like these guys who or this couple rather, who would go to Vegas and they'd blow all their money and they'd get all these comps. The reason why they kept doing it is because they liked that feeling.
Right.
They weren't like the biggest successes in the world, but when they went to Vegas, they got the red carpet rolled out for them. And so the idea is that everybody's going to want that. And furthermore, too, what's interesting about that statement about like the feeling rich, is like the second best thing to being rich, is that David Siegel, even at his peak, his net worth, I was trying to figure it out exactly. It's very hard to determine because he puts everything into his company. The closest thing I could see is by like 2016, he was like had like just under $1 billion according to Forbes. He definitely like called himself a billionaire, and referred to himself as a billionaire, but it's unclear how much of that is like his actual wealth because everything is mortgaged, and that eventually plays out into like why during the financial crisis so much of their empire starts to crumble, and why everything goes into default, because everything, like every time somebody like buys the timeshare, they take that, they get a mortgage on it, like the company does, and then they use that to like expand. It's all about growing, and endless growth and endless expansion, which again I think is brought up a little bit in that little anecdote from that profile talking about the divorce situation, because that's apparently what his second and third wife wanted out of, right? Is that feeling of like everything's constantly on edge, like there is no security because everything, like even the house that they live in, he takes a mortgage out on it and then puts it into the company in order to grow it and expand it. But in any case, just kind of again going through the timeline here. So in '98 he marries Jacqueline Mallory, who then becomes Jackie Siegel, and this is like the beginning of the height of his power. And one of the other things that's brought up in the documentary is he imagines himself as something of a political kingmaker.
Yes.
And he claims multiple times in the documentary and like at the time, apparently, he claimed that he was personally responsible for getting George W. Bush elected.
But he can't tell
in
you
2000.
why. He can't tell you how. He can't tell you how.
But he did outside of the documentary.
Oh, what's he say? Because I was wondering that. Because in the doc, he's like, "Oh, I can't tell you because it might be illegal."
Right. Lauren Greenfield asked him, and he's like, "I'd rather not say," but he's like, maybe we wouldn't have had the Iraq War without me. But I looked it up, and somebody, I think it was from Bloomberg, interviewed him. And he explained why he feels that way. He says, I personally got George W. Bush elected. I'm not proud of it. I feel like I'm responsible for all the problems in the world. Whenever I saw a negative article about Al Gore,
just not in the way you're saying it.
I put it in with the paychecks of my 8,000 employees. I had my managers do a survey on every employee. If they liked Bush, we made them register to vote, but not if they liked Gore. The week before the election, we made 80,000 phone calls through my call center. They were robocalls. On election day, we made sure everyone who was voting for Bush got to the polls. And this is all happening in Florida, by the way. I didn't know he would win by 527 votes. Afterward, we did a survey among the employees to find out who voted and who wouldn't have otherwise. 1,000 of them said so. So he personally feels responsible for like that small margin that he won by.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And but it is he likes
that's absurd. That's the margin is there because that's where the fucking Supreme Court halted everything.
Right. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
He the way he says it in the documentary, and you can tell this is like him trying to like seem cooler than he is or whatever. Maybe even to himself.
Yes.
He's trying to put it forth like he was some kind of Roger Stone-esque fixer.
That's what I thought he was implying. Some sort of like back room, smoke-filled room.
But what it really turns out is that he just kind of bullies his employees into voting for who he wants, and this is a pattern that will recur continually, and we'll get into that as we come about it. But in any case, he gets Bush elected, or he claims to. Bush becomes president.
David Siegel did 9/11.
Yep.
And he has like pictures of him. He was at like whatever, the victory party and stuff. He's like schmoozing, and and again, this is shown in the documentary, but in other places as well, you can find this, like all over his like flagship resorts and stuff. He has like pictures of him with various celebrities and political figures, most of which are like high-level Republicans, either again like the Bushes,
Sarah
Palin, Trump, Giuliani. He has one with, and so he likes to. He's like running in these circles.
Sure.
He's like a side character in these circles. But anyway, so Bush gets elected, and one of the things that happens during the Bush presidency, is the big boom, which is mainly driven by these like insanely low interest rates for lending, which is then again how his empire kind of balloons in those years, right? It goes from like a few $100 million to like $1 billion, maybe more than $1 billion, but all of that's getting put into the company, and this is kind of where like again the stuff from the documentary comes in, but like the two kind of key moments, right? This is him at the height of his power is. In 2004, him and Jackie start building the house.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about the details of the house in a bit, but it's like 2004 is when they start construction on this fucking gaudy monstrosity. And then in
Orlando, which is the funniest thing to me. What it reminded me of. Have you guys ever seen the Book of Mormon? There's like a there's a song in the Book of Mormon where he's like
Orlando.
Exactly. It's like the main lead character, the Mormon kid. He's about to go out on his mission, and he doesn't know where he's going to go, but he wants to go to his favorite place, the greatest place in the entire world, and like it's this build up, and then the joke is that it's Orlando, which is sucks. You know what I'm saying? Like that's So that's you're a multimillionaire, and you're building your dream house, and you're building it in
Right.
Orlando, Florida.
And what's weird too, and again, because in the documentary you see lots and lots of shots of the house, even before like the crash and everything happens and the downturn. But like literally, it's built obviously like next to a development of a bunch of other gaudy McMansions or what have you. But like literally like surrounding the property is just like swamp. Yeah. It's like swamp trees. Right. Yeah. It's like disgusting. Yeah. But anyway, so that's they start,
Florida, baby.
They start building the house, and then in 2005 is when he secures the deal to build his Vegas tower. Yeah. And the Vegas tower is supposed to be the jewel in the crown of his empire, right? It's supposed to be the biggest, like, timeshare, whatever, and it ends up costing him $660 million. It's this joint deal he does with Planet Hollywood.
Which is, like, also defunct now.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's building it, and then it opens in 2009 in December. And this is where we get into then, like, obviously the financial crisis is happening. A lot of the documentary takes place in the tower, and you see like the sales floor of the tower, and this is where the son, who's like vice president of Westgate now, he's like the sales manager or whatever.
I got like flashbacks of like watching his like pep talk to the fucking sales
about
floor.
saving lives.
Oh, I've worked in so many awful like high pressure sales centers and stuff like that. Yeah, awful.
Yeah, and I want to include that clip of him doing it, but before we get into it, the last thing I want to say before, because this is another little bit that's happening around this time that is not brought up in the documentary at all. But again, to sort of flavor it, David Siegel, he marries this like essentially this model beauty contest winner, right? And one of the things that comes up multiple times throughout the documentary is like he's obviously like a dirtbag, right? And he's like a sleazy, like sex criminal, almost certainly. And he's constantly like making jokes about like
trading her in for two 20-year-olds when she turns 40.
Like when she turns 40, I'm going to marry two 20-year-olds. He's like 30 years older than her when they get married.
He's like sexually harassing the Miss America contestants when they're in his house.
He pretends to be like this big philanthropist, and a lot of the money he gives is to like the Miss America beauty contest and shit. And he hosts the parties at his house, so he's got all the young women in his house, and he's like,
what a nice guy.
And he's like flirting with them, and it's really creepy and weird.
When he talks about like having babies with that young woman, it was just like it made my skin crawl.
Yes.
You could tell she was uncomfortable too. Sorry, go on.
Okay, so this is a quick little anecdote before we get too farther into the documentary again, because I was surprised that this didn't come up. But this is from that same profile that I was reading from before from the Orlando magazine. And it says, quote, last year, so that would mean in 2008.
Yeah.
Because the profile was written in 2009. Siegel lost a sexual harassment lawsuit in Orlando federal court. The trial was page one of the Orlando Sentinel and led TV news broadcasts. A salacious sex scandal that played out in court for 4 years. It was the Orlando version of an indecent proposal. Dawn Myers, who was fired after working 14 years for Westgate, claimed Siegel offered her $1 million for sex, and that Jacqueline propositioned her for a menage a trois. Myers also alleged that Siegel sexually harassed and groped her repeatedly in the 1990s and 2000 while she dated one of his sons.
Oh my God.
Siegel denied the allegations in court, but the jurors sided with Myers, awarding her $5.4 million. Afterwards, Siegel complained they ruled against him because he was, quote, a wealthy guy. The judge later reduced the award to $610,000. Both sides are appealing. And then I looked into it. Both appeals, whatever, were rejected. So that was the end of the lawsuit, was $610,000. But a few interesting takeaways here is like, obviously this is a high profile case because it went to court, but it almost certainly is like a very clear pattern of behavior. I mean, again, you can see it in the documentary.
He doesn't hide it,
like groping and like making weird sexual comments and advances and offers and stuff to his employees, and any woman that's around him.
By the way, I did Google David Siegel, Jeffrey Epstein, and David Siegel, Ghislaine Maxwell, because it's just you just know his numbers in that little black book, but I didn't find anything.
No, you didn't find anything conclusive. Let's put it that way.
I would put money on his numbers in that fucking book.
But the other takeaway here too for me was that the jury awarded her $5.4 million and the judge reduced it to $610,000.
Yeah.
Which is still not like a small chunk of change, but like, come on, man, like that. that seems a little corrupt to me, given that he's also given lots of money in politics and locally and nationally. But in any case, that all sets the stage for like where we're at when we enter the film. And so I don't know, Carrie, if you want to take it from here and talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the movie.
Sure. I mean, I think the thing that stands out to me most in the beginning of the movie is like they show them as a couple. That's how like the movie kind of starts, and they're both talking about their lives and kind of like their lives together, and they're both clearly so like invested in maintaining this image of who they are as a couple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about each other in like these glowing ways, but then you can kind of really see that he just like hates her. I don't know.
Yes.
That's how I felt.
Yes.
Oh, he explicitly like says like being married to her is like having another child.
Yes. I mean, it's just, he has like such disdain for her and for his whole family. And he specifically says in one part of the movie, I think, that he's not happy and that he doesn't know if he can be happy.
Right.
And it is just like you see this like extravagance that they're living in. And it's all just like a veneer that then like their actual house is just like covered in fresh dog shit.
Just dead animals. And
there's
just
dead animals.
Dog shit and like just awful dogs running around eating all their food.
I because I'd mentioned, with his first wife he had 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
With his second wife he had another kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then with his, I guess, 4th wife, technically, with Jackie, he has 7 kids.
And one adopted.
And one adopted.
And then one adopted
8
kid
kids,
who, so like
none of whom he gives a shit about.
No, he clearly does not care for
I remember
any of them.
There's one point like where there's like they're interviewing the two of them and they're like talking about like all their different plans, all their extravagant plans for their house, and he's like, but they're like he's talking about like the kids are gonna have their own wing of the house. And he's like, yeah, we're even gonna give them their own stage where they just do like I don't know whatever they do. It's like, I just have more money than God. I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna build this. I don't know what they're gonna do with it. I don't care.
The thing that
he says too.
No,
go ahead. No, I was going to say that he says too at one point in the documentary, like, and he's talking about himself, and he's like, I've done so much good for people.
Oh,
yes.
Like everybody
I wrote
in
down
my
this
life.
line verbatim.
Yeah. So, but it's like everybody who is either a child or employee of me.
Yeah.
He says, I think everyone is better off for being my child or employee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just those two are like inseparable to him. The way he equates the two of them. Yeah.
Which then later comes up too with the son, who like talks about how estranged he was from his father, and how he has he's vice president of the fucking company, and all they ever talk about is business, and he has no close relationship with his father. It's so devastating.
The stuff with the son when he talks about how he kind of like left the family and did not really give them any money, and so they grew up extremely poor, except he would once a year like take them clothes shopping, so they were always the best dressed kids, and then like other than that he was completely absent, and then he let him live with him for 1 year and then sent him back to like live in poverty. Like that was just like so heartbreaking, and the way that he kind of tries to be like, but now we're in business together, like you can tell like the pain is just so palpable. And it is, obviously the guy is like a scumbag, but it is just so deeply depressing.
It is a grim, depressing movie.
Yeah. And the other thing about the kids that I was going to say was that she herself, Jackie says at one point, like, when she was growing up, like nannies weren't even a thing, and that she never would have had so many children if she didn't have a nanny, because they end up having to cut a lot of their staff. So she just like explicitly says, like, when I found out I could have nannies, I just wanted 1 million kids, but I wouldn't have done that if I knew this was going to happen. Which is like so dark. Like imagine your parents saying that about you.
I mean, I think the thing too that's bizarre with the kids, right, is like even prior to the moment, because again, the documentary probably was started in like 2006 or 2007, somewhere around there, and it's like chronicling, again this rise, and so even before like the financial crisis hits and it throws the company and everything and their finances into disarray, like you see the inside of their current house, and it's already a mansion. It's already like a 26,000 square foot house or something.
And she says they're bursting at the seams of it.
Right, because it's just filled with crap. It's just filled with
literal
like junk.
Dog shit.
Well, there's a scene too, like by the way, and this is much later in the movie where like just like where she's at Toys R Us with the nanny, and she's going like Christmas shopping for all the kids and everybody, and if you look at like the shit she's buying, she's buying like 3 copies of the game Operation, of, like, the board
yeah.
game. You notice that too?
Yes.
The house is just full of just so much unnecessary shit, and like neither the kids have no idea what all their toys are. They don't even know what pets they have. They're just like they're just letting their pets die because they're not feeding them because they don't even know that they have them or give a shit. Yeah.
The thing with the dead lizard, and just for the listener, there's like a scene
Spoiler alert.
Where Jackie, she's like admonishing the kids for not feeding the lizard, and one of the daughters is like, well, nobody takes me to the pet store to get the pet food, and she's like, well, you could at least like give it water, and they're like kind of arguing, and she is arguing in like such a childlike way, and then of course they like go into the lizard's cage, which has probably been neglected and not even given water for weeks, and the lizard is just like fully dead, and it's probably been dead for a while. And at the same time, I think the camera cuts to like the dog shit that's on the floor, because they have like 12 dogs running around of various sizes and ages.
And she has stuffed dogs of all the dogs.
Taxidermy
dogs.
dogs.
She just like goes through dogs. The dogs keep dying.
Yeah.
And she lets the dogs breed too.
Yeah, there's puppies.
There's puppies, and there's a loose snake. There's a pet snake loose in the house too.
There's one point where she's like, I gotta find BB's puppies so the python doesn't eat them. And I mean, all of these things get exacerbated in the latter half of the film when, again, after the financial crisis hits, because at one point, because they cut from their staff 19 like housekeepers,
right?
But they still have like 3 nannies when they do that.
So it's the nannies doing everything,
right?
Yes.
But that shows you too, like at the height, they had like over 20 people working on like taking care of the kids, cleaning up the house, and when we first see them, which is at the height of their wealth and extravagance and their power, there's dog shit all over
everywhere,
all over the carpeted floors. There's just junk in every hallway, and it's so, and that's why that line that we mentioned where he says like, if you can't be rich, the next thing is to feel rich. It's such like nouveau riche.
It is.
Like if you had a billions of dollars, what would you do? I could buy 10 Monopoly sets.
There's lots of really like funny, like very well framed like shots as well. Like I remember because there's a recurring kind of theme where like Jackie like is ordering McDonald's or going to McDonald's.
Yes. Oh my
and there's
God.
Like one
so
scene,
many times.
There's one scene of the outside of a McDonald's with their limousine like parked across like 6 parking spaces like outside of the McDonald's. And the like I remember also like there's another part earlier in the movie, like before they're having the party that you mentioned, like for the Miss America contestants or whatever, and it's like Jackie is taking the kids to get their hair done, and they're just like at a strip mall salon.
Yes.
They're just like they're not at a rich people salon or anything.
Yeah, and that's when she says, let's get McDonald's and let's get all the sauces for the nuggets.
Right, we're gonna order 50 McNuggets for all of us, for us, and we're gonna feed we're so benevolent that we're gonna feed the staff at the salon with chicken McNuggets.
McNuggets. Any sauce you want.
All the sauces.
It's the taste of luxury, baby. This is what it's like to be rich.
She's like talking to the lady who's doing her daughter's hair, who literally has like no interest in talking to her, like visibly. And she's like, you better make them really pretty because we got Miss America at the house tonight. That's what's happening. It's in our house. Isn't that great? She's like really like trying for other people to be like interested in what she's doing.
Sure, yeah.
It's really sad. I found the interactions, especially with the kids, really sad.
Well, of course. I mean, one of the things that comes across in the film, and again, it's just, the sheer access, right? Of like, you see this fucking gaggle of children just running around, like almost entirely unsupervised, from like activity to activity, and they're just like mountain of shit in each of their rooms, and again, in the house that's not even the Versailles house,
right?
Like not the one that they're building, the mansion that they're in, which is already 26,000 whatever square feet. That she says we're bursting at the seams, and there are a bunch of different sequences in different kids' rooms, and there was one sequence where I was like looking at the room, and it hit me. It's like this child's room is larger than our apartment.
Yeah.
Like just their room, and it's filled with like there's like a stuffed life-size like plush doll of like the Monsters Inc. characters.
Sully.
Yes.
Sully, right?
Yeah,
Sully,
Sully,
yeah.
yeah. And like, and there's just like all kinds of other just shit in each of the rooms, right? And it's very clear that like, again, with the lack of supervision with them, or like again with the pets or the animals, like, you know, the Jackie is at least like trying in some superficial way to like get involved with the kids, to like please the children, to like buy them shit, even in that limited way. And then like it cuts to like David, and he just doesn't give a shit.
He hates
like
them.
he doesn't even like clock that he's got kids in his house, you know what I mean? They're just like nuisances running around him as he's like on the phone like borrowing more money to like live more extravagantly.
There was a scene where they're making like his birthday dinner, and she's like trying to get him to come out, and before that she was like trying to make the birthday dinner, and she just like, I think she put some chicken in a pan, and then she looks at the nanny and she's like, what's next?
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah,
you get like the impression
yeah.
that she's just almost totally non-functional, but she does really like, she seems to really want to please him, and maybe she's playing that up for the camera, but he is just in his, you know, if you can call it an office, it's almost like it's just like a room with like
another room piled with shit. Yeah,
it's piled with shit, it's piled with papers, and he's watching Shrek in it while he's
He's got Shrek on the TV.
like, you couldn't set this up, you know, as like a fictional movie. Like, the fact that she was there to film this is absolutely incredible. He's like,
It's
I'm doing
unbelievable.
business. I'm doing business while he's watching Shrek.
70-year-old man, and he's like, I think that's the same sequence where, again, this is like in the downturn, this is like post-financial crisis,
Right.
where like, you know, they're running out of money for the various things because everything was stretched to its limits, and he's like bitching at all of his children,
Yes.
who like the mom is like gathering children in the house, being like, go in there, like, your dad's really stressed out, go in there and tell him you love him,
Right.
and like, so then like the 7-year-old kid who has no idea what the fuck is going on goes in and is like, hey dad, I just want to let you know I love you. And the dad, the bitter 70-year-old father with Shrek in the background, is like, if you love me, you'll turn off the goddamn lights. You know what the electrical bill is running in this house? It's so dark. And I just, in terms of the homemaking stuff too, this was something you pointed out, Carrie, while we were watching it again in preparation for this episode, because this week, in an unrelated thing, we were reading together The Authoritarian Personality by Adorno, and then a series of other like clinical psychologists, you know, from like the 50s. And we were reading the section that was a series of clinical interviews done with like people about like their childhood and stuff by Elsa Frankel Brunswick. And she was talking about how like one of the things they found in like deeply prejudiced people is like the way they talk about their parents and their loved ones is in these like very superficial ways, in which if you ask them like, can you describe your mother, can you describe your father, and they'll be like, my father is very handsome, he is so and so tall,
right?
You know, this is how many years old he is, like. And there was one scene, and then one of the other things is like they will only say criticism in like a kind of self-delusional way, where like they'll hide a criticism in a compliment without being able to acknowledge that like there might be a problem in their family, right? Because they have to maintain the illusion that their family is like perfect,
right?
And there's a line where like the filmmaker is asking David about his wife, and they're like, what do you like about her? Like, what are her good qualities? And he says like, what she lacks in being a housekeeper, she makes up with a great spirit.
Yes.
Or something along those lines. And it was like literally the fucking thing we had read, and like people who are predisposed to being Nazis like say about their loved ones. It's just like to a T. But it is also clear that like, I mean, you know, the wife has no idea, like, you know, without this enormous staff of like scores of people to like take care of their house and to do everything for them, you know, no idea of how to like manage the kids or clean up or any of that kind of stuff.
I mean, she even says at one point when they're having the Christmas party, she's like, I miss having a manager to do this stuff for me. Like, she had like a personal manager that would like handle just like basic, like having a Christmas party. And there is also at that party they force the nanny to dress up as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
So
which
grim. It's oh my
so
god, the
fucking
scenes,
heartbreaking,
all the
dude.
scenes with the nannies are so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's horrible.
There was one of the other nannies. I don't believe it was that same nanny. Her name is Virginia Nabab. And when they have the interview with her where she's just like kind of talking at length about, you know, how she hasn't seen her children in so many years, and, you know, how the Siegel kids tell her that they love her and she can't hear that from her own children, but at least she has the Siegel kids. It's like so depressing. And it also like there's a lot of scenes showing like the nanny interacting with the kids, and like you can tell that there is like a genuine affection there that they don't really like have with their own mom. And it is like so
or
sad.
father.
Absolutely.
Like the kids are entirely neglected by this like gaudy nouveau riche couple. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the house, which is the starting point of the documentary.
Yeah, by the way, I did want to mention, by the way, and I did mention this to Carrie off mic before we began, because I was saying this in the context of the way like that like the house would never have been the largest house in the country. The Biltmore house is 180,000 square feet. I've seen estimates for this house for the Siegel's house is anywhere from like 85,000 to 90,000. In fact, if you look at the Wikipedia page of like the largest houses in the country, it's like number 9 or something like that. It like never would have been the large. But like it's funny that they continue to say this throughout the movie, like knowing that it's not true. Yeah. Unless they're going to add another fucking 90,000 square feet to it, it was never going to be the largest house in the country. But they continue to say this throughout the movie. But like I was sharing, it's like almost like it's like the way Trump lies about stuff that's just like anybody can verify that they're lying.
Right.
Maybe it's like the largest with like an asterisk because it's like the largest like single family home that people like actually live in. Because does anybody live in the Biltmore house?
I think so. No, yeah. I think that people still occupy the Biltmore house, but I mean it is open to tours. But I do think that maybe someone still lives there. I can't remember. I mean, there's a couple houses like that the Vanderbilts built, and there's another one that the DuPonts built. Like there's a couple houses that are larger.
Honestly, this house is kind of small.
It's small
for me.
It's small.
For me, it's
pathetic.
Small. It's sad.
Pathetic.
But yeah, I'll say how they described it in the movie. They do describe. I thought this was a really good cut too. She talks about being. She says we went to France and we saw Versailles and we were inspired by French architecture, and then it cuts directly to him saying like we saw the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas and we copied the top. And they did. They directly copied the Paris Hotel, and the way it's described in the movie is like having 10 kitchens and a sushi bar, 2 tennis courts, with one being a stadium court, an ice skating / roller rink. The children
alley.
Bowling alley. The children have their own wing, like you mentioned, Shane. And there's one, I wrote down this line that she said. She's like, she's walking around the house giving like a little tour to the camera crew, and she's like, this is where I'd go up if I was going to visit the children.
Yes.
As if the children just like live in like a totally separate house.
Right.
And then my favorite part is there's an observation deck to see the fireworks at Disney.
Fireworks from Disney.
And then at the end, it's a little bit of great filmmaking. It's the fireworks at Disney shot through that window. Like
the husk. The husk of the house.
But yeah, I think the specifics have changed a little bit over the years. Like according to Wikipedia, the residence is going to include 11 kitchens, 14 bedrooms, 3 indoor pools, 2 outdoor pools, video arcade, ballroom, 2-story movie theater.
A ballroom with a 500 to 1,000 person
That's
capacity.
right.
A secret speakeasy. Did you see that? She wants to put, because like now, like when they were originally building the house, like the kids were all children, right? So they wanted to have like nannies' quarters, like close. They needed like nannies' quarters or whatever.
A carousel, all this shit for little kids.
Yeah. So like now they had all this little kid shit in mind. Now the kids are all fucking like late teens or adults.
One of the playrooms is getting turned into a yoga studio, supposedly. That was one of the things. And then
they're gonna have like a secret speakeasy bar, I guess, like a speakeasy themed bar with like a secret elevator or some shit.
And the teenager cave is getting turned into a second movie theater. You know, because just one, like that's boring.
You gotta show Shrek 1 and 2 simultaneously.
Saved while you're doing your business calls.
No, you gotta show the video recording of the Shrek musical. That's what you gotta do.
This was an interesting bit for me.
I gotta add. Can I add a few more doodads that are in the house?
Please.
Just again, reading off Wikipedia, an exotic fish aquarium.
Yes.
All dead. Just
dead.
smells terrible. Yeah, rotting.
Two tennis courts. Two-lane bowling alley, a baseball diamond, a formal outdoor garden, and an elevator in the master bedroom closet.
Yeah.
That's how big the fucking closet is. A multi-stage, multi-story closet.
I mean, she walked into her closet in like the shell of the house at one point, and that
Yes.
was another case where it was like, this is bigger than our apartment.
Yeah.
Because I think it was her friend that was with her. She was like, oh, is this the master bedroom? And she's like, no, this is going to be my closet.
At one point too in the documentary, like again, they're in various stages of constructing the house, they go into like the garage of the house, and she says like that's $5 million of Chinese marble,
And it's just
Yes.
sitting there. There's dust
it's
all
just
over
sitting.
it.
Yeah. There's like on the in the center, I guess, of like the main ballroom foyer, whatever area. There's like a fucking $1 million, several $1 million like glass. Dome.
Yeah.
That, like a stained glass dome that's on the top of it. Yeah.
There's a moment with that is it's like after like they're like like really like dire financial straits or whatever, she's like walking through with the kids and the house is already kind of like in disrepair, and she goes, who likes the beautiful window? And she like whispers to herself, yeah, that was over $250,000. Oh, spiders, wow, because there's just like spiders everywhere.
There's another scene kind of later on where like they show all the stuff they have in storage, and it's like millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of like antiques. It's like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, like the fucking storage, with all the fucking treasures.
And it's all the whole idea is again, it's mostly like French Louis the Sun King era shit.
Yeah.
Giant Fabergé eggs that she's like, what are these Russian eggs called? I love them.
Yeah.
And then the really fucked up thing to me, which I guess like it didn't really register for me when we first watched it, but it really stood out to me this time was, just calling back to that life-size Sully. We see him again in the thrift store that she opens with all the overflow of garbage from her house. It's just in a giant bin. There's like multiple shelves of like all the trash that is just like, goods that she doesn't want anymore because she just like keeps shopping. And she frames it as like,
I'm doing good to the community.
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
People need to be able to buy stuff they can afford or whatever. And it's literally like mostly the overflow from their 26,000 square foot house.
Right.
It's so obscene. It really is so obscene to see like a life-size Monsters Inc. statue in a bin dwarfed by this stuff around it.
I think, with this in mind, just to kind of give some chronicling to this, right? Because the documentary covers, the period just before and then just after the financial crisis. And so essentially what happens and the way it's sort of described in that and a lot of the other interviews and like pieces that I read about David Siegel and Westgate is that essentially because like we were describing before, like every bit of money that they got, they immediately reinvested it. And I think at one point in the documentary he says like, why would I ever have an asset that I don't have leveraged?
Right.
Like, and so like the fucking 26,000 square foot mansion that they're living in now, like he got a mortgage on that.
Yep.
He bought it for cash and then took out a fucking mortgage on it so that then he could put that money into the company. And so everything is built like that. So when the financial crisis happens, right, it all comes tumbling down because there's no money to go into it. In fact, they end up having to lay off like thousands of their employees.
2 days before Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. That's a brutal scene where it describes like there's like the manager or whatever's the last guy left in one of their sales teams, like a telemarketing sales cubicle, court.
There's just dozens of cubicles completely empty. It's like a ghost town.
And he describes, that they fired hundreds of people 2 days before Thanksgiving. And, the thing that he keeps saying too, because he gets very bitter at this point of the documentary, which is like really where the palpable, like, ooh, like stuff comes from, is he keeps talking about like how it's the bankers.
Yes.
Like the bankers got me addicted to cheap money.
Yes.
Because the interest rates were so low. And then at one point too, the Jackie, she's like, these bankers, they're so greedy. Like
she calls them vultures.
They got the bailout money from the government and they were supposed to send it to the common people,
right,
like us.
Yeah.
So that's then the turn, and the big thing that is like the crux of like him being able to like continue to afford this lifestyle is this giant tower he's built in Vegas.
Right.
And he's like holding on to it bitterly. And the reason why is because, you know, again, it's the jewel in his crown, but also I think that the way that the documentary puts it, and you kind of get this through some of the interviews with him and the son, is that like there's an emotional and like pride attachment to this idea of like my parents gambled away their lives in Vegas, and that's why I didn't have anything. So now I've built this like over $500 million tower in Vegas.
Right.
I'm not going to walk away from it. I'm not going to give it over to the banks. I'm not going to allow them to foreclose on it. And then they eventually do. And that's when we were talking about, you know, again, the illegal activity or whatever. It's like,
he just really puts it all out there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a part where the son is talking about how like everybody's turned against the father and wants him to like let go of the tower.
Yes.
And he's like the only one that's like sticking with his dad.
His dad who couldn't give a shit about him.
Right. And even though he says multiple times, like, you know, we don't have a close relationship, it's all about business, you could see that like all that he wants is for his dad to love him. Like that is what he wants out of that. I mean, he also wants money, let's be real. He talks about how his dad on his wedding day told his wife that she would never like want for anything, and then he talks about how he had to take out another mortgage on his house to like pay bills and like raise all his credit card limits.
It's funny too because this is not stuff that's super covered in the documentary, but if you go to just Westgate Resorts on Wikipedia, there's a whole, you know, because in one of the anecdotes I read from that profile of him, one of the things he says about himself is like, I'm not litigious.
Right.
And there's a whole section for the company that's just called lawsuits.
Right.
And so, you know, they end up in a long protracted lawsuit, you know, millions and millions of dollars with the contractors who were like building the tower, that only got resolved in like 2017. And they had, eventually Westgate had to pay them like unpaid money, you know, that they refused for a variety of different reasons. There was also a class action lawsuit in 2010 by 300 former sales employees for unpaid commissions.
Wow.
They won the lawsuit, and I'm just, again, from Wikipedia, Westgate Resorts were ordered to pay $600,000. Despite paying $50,000 initially, Westgate stopped payment, and the matter went back to the courts for another 3 years. The matter was finally settled, and Westgate agreed to pay $500,000, $100,000 less than the original judgment required. There's a number of these things that keep coming up, of just this protracted legal battles, many of which that were started around the financial crisis have not been resolved until like the last couple of years. Which shows that, you know, for all of his whatever fake bullshit about like, I'm not a litigious guy, I'm a nice guy, look, I'm a philanthropist and all that, he's like bitterly clinging on to like every fucking cent.
He also sued the filmmaker.
That's right. That's right. After the movie came out.
Yeah, which he also lost. I mean, I imagine that it was in part because he realized how bad it made him look when he actually watched the movie, when he's like talking about doing borderline illegal shit. But yeah, he lost, and he had to like pay for, I think, her legal fees as well and some kind of damages, because it was just like a fraudulent lawsuit. I think one of the really interesting things as well was like the juxtaposition between like how they're experiencing the financial crisis, which is still in like really like obscene wealth, you know, in spite of like all the trouble that they're having. And then at the same time, her friend loses her house. Her friend from back home loses her house in spite of like her giving her $5,000 to save the house. And then there's also like that montage of all the customer service representatives in their cubicles calling people trying to collect money that they can't pay. Yeah,
they call asset reclamation or something like that is the name of the new department they come up with. Because obviously, again, too, in the financial crisis, right? Like the whole premise of this business model is like if you're selling somebody an $8,900 timeshare, which is their minimum, they do a down payment and then they're on a monthly payment program. And the idea is, I think even the son at one point says this, like, we live and die by those monthly payments. That's how we can like pay our employees. And so they're like hounding people, and they have this like script. It's such a horrible script where it's like, you know, how can we help you deal with this crisis in this time? How can we help you repay this loan, essentially? Which anybody who's ever had any engagement with any kind of debt collector, which I imagine if you're listening to the show, you do. Like, I know I certainly have, and we've talked about it a number of times, but it's like that horrible, like weird, like we want to help you attachment to like, we want to help you repay this debt you took out.
And they are explicitly selling to people who can't afford it, right? Like one of the things that the son says is that even their lenders told them, you're selling subprime to people who can't afford your product. and this is
model.
not
Right.
going to work. And it is their business model. It is like a predatory.
It's scamming working people, working families into thinking they can afford this luxurious vacation thing that they probably really can't afford. And then, of course, it gets turned around. It's like, well, it's their fault. Right. It's like,
they're mooches.
You shouldn't have.
They're greedy. Yeah. I think, did we already mention that they then are forced to put the house on the market?
No, we haven't talked about that yet.
So they do. They put the house on the market and they're going to sell it for either, what was the figure?
75 million. Yeah,
Unfinished.
75 million if unfinished, 100 million completed.
Right. And his lenders want him to sell it for 15 million. Like they want him to just get rid of it.
They want him, to offload it so he has some cash.
It's a half-finished house in the swamp. You want $100 million for it.
There's a great moment where the filmmaker is interviewing the limo driver.
God.
And he's very candidly like, you could put it on the market, but the reality is like how many people can afford such a house?
Right.
And on top of that, within that small group already of the top 1% who could afford such a gaudy extravagance, they'd have to want to live in Orlando, Florida to make it worthwhile. And he says, that really limits it to and he says you got some real estate people. You got some orange families.
Yeah.
Orange juice families. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hoping, because I went into this movie knowing nothing about this, and I was really hoping that the conclusion was somebody was gonna buy the property and just bulldoze the half finished house and build their own house.
Because what can you do with it?
Right.
Yeah. What can you possibly do with that? Really interestingly too, with the limo driver, right? He talks about he lived in New York.
Yeah.
He's got kind of a New York, Long Island accent.
Yeah.
And he's like, me and my wife, we moved to Orlando because we thought it would be a better opportunity, and the real estate market was booming, and at one point we had 19 houses.
19 houses.
Because again, he was doing the same thing,
Yeah.
living to the very, very extreme. Everything is maxed out, the most pure financialization logic that we've talked about on the show. It's if you have the hammer and it's just sitting there, why don't you lease it out or resell it for 90% of what you paid for it? With there's no buffer, there's nothing set aside, and that's the other moment. Then speaking about the kids, the tragic moment for them, for Jackie in particular, is she at one moment is I realized I'm gonna start having to tell the kids you have to start thinking about what you want to be when you grow up. Because there's not gonna be any money left, and then the dad says a couple of times I put nothing away. There's no savings.
There's
nothing. Everything is just maxed out to its limit,
which is insane.
And then that idea that hey, the kids, you might have to go to college. That's what Jackie says at a point. You might actually have to go to college and get a job.
There's going back to the limo driver. He's talking about how he had to move into a rental or whatever. And I just wanted to touch on this because it is a connection, and I don't know what is wrong with these people, but in his house as well, he also has pictures of himself with Bill Clinton and various other people. But then he also has a dog shit cemetery of dog shit that he doesn't fucking clean up.
Yes, no, in his backyard of the house that he's rented.
Yes.
There's a shot where there's just pile
on concrete.
Weeks of dog shit just built up.
None of these people know how to clean up their own dog shit. It just sits there if they don't have maids picking it up. It's insane.
There's another moment there too where again, it's in the post-recession thing where they don't have as many house cleaners or whatever, and Jackie is with one of the kids, and she's asking him to gather items that she can then go hawk in her little thrift shop or whatever. And at one moment he steps in dog shit, and he's oh, I just stepped in something. He's 10 years old, and she's just oh no, was it doggy caca? And the kid's yeah, I think it was doggy caca. and she's just ew, gross. And it's just you're letting your children, you have at least at one point you had more money than God. You still have a much more luxurious lifestyle than literally, not just even now, but throughout all of human history, no one has ever had. And you're just letting dogs breed and shit in your house all over the place.
God,
to the point where your children are just randomly stepping in dog shit, and your reaction to that is to go ew.
You know that it happens happens every day based on how they interacted.
Absolutely.
Yes, of
they
course.
literally just step in dog shit every single fucking
Well,
day.
I mean, one of the very first things, even pre-recession, one of the very first things that happens in the movie
Oh, no.
is they're walking throughout the house, and Jackie, like, looks at one of the dogs. And again, when I say dogs, there's like a dozen just, like, basically feral dogs, like, running around their house. One of the dogs is eating a cockroach.
Yes.
And she's just like, oh no, like BB's eating a cockroach. Ew.
There's a
ew.
great
Which
scene-
means
there's a
their
great-
house is infested.
There's a great scene at the end where, like, after their Christmas party, and it's like the dog is just like just
Yeah.
on a table, just like eating the
Going to
leftover
town.
food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for the dog, you
People
know?
left sitting around.
Yeah, I don't know. The stuff with the animals like really pissed me off. And it's the thing too is that you know that the kids would be as neglected as the animals are if it wasn't for like the 2 or
Of
3
course.
nannies that are left. And that's
Right,
really
right. Which
it's
makes it
disturbing.
even more sad.
Yeah.
We should get into like what happened afterwards
Sure.
stuff. But the one last thing I want to bring up about the documentary, just because again you reminded me by saying the thing about the nannies, is that one of the nannies, who's Filipino, like in the mansion that they already live in the backyard, at some point they had built like a little playhouse for the twins. And then I guess the twins got bored of it or whatever. And so the nanny was like, can I use this as like my house? And it's tiny. I mean, it's like the size of a closet. You know, it's like designed to be like a children's playhouse.
Right.
And Jackie,
A bed doesn't even fit in it.
yes, Jackie so benevolently was like, yeah, of course you can have it. And there's like an interview with the nanny where she's saying like it's very important, you know, for Filipinos, like for us to have our own house. Like my dad always wanted his own house. He wanted to build a concrete house, and I sent all my money back to the Philippines, but he died before he could have the money to do it. And now, you know, but we were able to bury him in like a concrete tomb. And so I guess at the end of the day, like he did get a house. You know, that's his own. And she's saying all of this like while she's in this like little children's playroom.
Right.
That is again so benevolently been given to her by like the madam of the house.
Where she sleeps on a cot that's folded up so that she can actually step into it.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, again, it's so just gripping to watch, but at the same time it shows like the weird disconnect of like, you know, with Jackie and like all of her other attempts to like, because like when she sets up the thrift store too, one of the things she says is like, I was so sad that all the Westgate employees got fired, so like I hired them to work at my little pet project here.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing good. Like now I'm like, I used to just go to charity lunches and buy dresses to go to the charity lunches, but now I'm actually doing charity.
Right.
I'm selling the stuff from my garbage room.
Yeah.
It's right after
Yeah.
that scene
Oh,
where
God.
she's talking about how she's able to get a concrete tomb for her father, where Virginia Nabab, the nanny, is talking about that, where then it cuts to, I think it's the son again, talking about, like, the lenders are trying to get us to stop selling units, but we won't. And it's just, like, such,
Yeah.
like, the experience of life of these people who, like, live in pretty much the same space is just, like, so obscenely different. And they don't have any awareness of that. Like, you can tell that, like, Jackie has no awareness of that, especially, you know? And it's just, it's, like, really heartbreaking.
Yeah. So the documentary ends then with this like ambiguity, right? It came out in 2012. It's like, who knows what's going to happen to the house?
Right.
It's on the market. Who knows what's going to happen to the tower? He did eventually have to sell the tower. That's what
Right.
ends up happening. He ends up having to give that up. And so let's talk a little bit about what's happened since then. And the first thing that I would like to do with that in mind is speaking to, again, his kind of like political inclinations is something that I got into a little bit of hot water for. The 2012 election letter. So
God.
he sent out a letter to all of his employees, the ones he hadn't already fired right before some holiday or whatever, before the 2012 election. And I feel like reading the entire thing has value, unless
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
too long. Should I just read it? Do you want to like tag team
It's good
this?
stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff.
You
How
can
should we
read
do
it. I
this?
mean,
Go
it
ahead.
is, yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is from 2012 by David Siegel. To all my valued employees. As most of you know, our company, Westgate Resorts, has continued to succeed in spite of a very dismal economy. There is no question that the economy has changed for the worse, and we have not seen any improvement over the past 4 years. In spite of all the challenges we have faced, the good news is this. The economy doesn't currently pose a threat to your job. What does threaten your job, however, is another 4 years of the same presidential administration. Of course, as your employer, I can't tell you whom to vote for, and I certainly wouldn't interfere with your right to vote for whomever you choose. In fact, I encourage you to vote for whomever you think will serve your interests the best. However, let me share a few facts that might help you decide what is in your best interest. The current administration and members of the press have perpetrated an environment that casts employers against employees. They want you to believe that we live in a class system, where the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. They label us the 1% and imply that we are somehow immune to the challenges that face our country. This could not be further from the truth. Sure, you may have heard about the big home that I'm building. I'm sure many people think that I live a privileged life.
God.
However, what you don't see or hear is the true story.
The piles of dog shit. You don't see the shit everywhere. Dead animals.
What you don't see or hear is the true story behind any success I have achieved. I started this company over 42 years ago. At that time, I lived in a very modest home. I converted my garage into an office so I could put
Yep, there it is,
100%
baby.
into
God
building
damn
a
it.
company, which, by the way, would eventually employ you. We didn't eat in fancy restaurants or take expensive vacations because every dollar I made went back into this company.
His whole business model is based on tricking people who
Yes.
can't afford
Yes.
to take expensive vacations.
I drove an old used car, and oftentimes I stayed home on weekends, while my friends went out drinking and partying. In fact, I was married to my business. Hard work, discipline, and sacrifice. Meanwhile, many of my friends got regular jobs. They worked 40 hours a week and made a nice income, and they spent every dime they earned. They drove flashy cars and lived in expensive homes and wore fancy designer clothes. My friends refinanced their mortgages and lived a life of luxury.
Oh, I would never do that.
Yeah. I, however, did not.
Oh.
I put my time, my money, and my life into this business with a vision that eventually, someday, I too will be able to afford to buy whatever I wanted. Even to this day, every dime I earn goes back into this company. Over the past 4 years, I've had to stop building my dream house,
Okay.
cut back on all of my expenses, and take my kids out of private school simply to keep this company strong and keep you employed. Just think about this. Most of you arrive at work in the morning and leave that afternoon, and the rest of your time is yours to do as you please.
Oh,
But not me.
damn it.
There is
Oh,
no
poor
off
me.
button for me. When you leave the office, you are done and you have a weekend all to yourself. I unfortunately do not have that freedom. I eat, live, and breathe this company every minute of the day, every day of the week. There is no rest, there is no weekend, there is no happy hour. I know many of you work hard and do a great job, but I'm the one who has to sign every check, pay every expense, and make sure that this company continues to succeed. Unfortunately, what most people see is the nice house and the lavish lifestyle. What the press certainly does not want you to see is the true story of the hard work and sacrifices I've made. Should I keep going with this?
I didn't realize how fucking long this. I'm looking at
It's-
how
it's
long
quite
it is.
long.
It's insanely long.
It's yeah, I mean, it gets into all of the, like, bullshit of, like, there's, like, a part in it where he's like, the government now wants to take my money and give it to
Yeah.
poor people. How would you feel if I took 50% of your check and gave it to poor
Yeah.
people?
He says whose policies will endanger your job.
Yeah.
He's threatening them, like, overtly.
Yeah. There's one good line here. I'll just read. Business is at the heart of America and always has been. I'll skip to the end of this. It's
Please,
extremely
please.
long.
Please.
So, when you make your decision to vote, ask yourself, which candidate understands the economics of business ownership and who doesn't? Whose policies will endanger your job? Answer those questions, and you should know who might be the one capable of protecting and saving your job. While the media wants to tell you to believe the 1%ers are bad, I'm telling you they are not. They create most of the jobs. If you lose your job, it won't be at the hands of the 1%, it will be at the hands of a political hurricane that swept through this country.
Oh, all right.
You see, I can no longer support a system that penalizes the productive and gives to the unproductive. My motivation to work and to provide jobs will be destroyed, and with it, so will your opportunities. If that happens, you can find me in the Caribbean sitting on the beach, under a palm tree, retired, and with no employees to worry about. Signed, your boss.
Yeah. To add a little context here too, when this first came out, like the article that I was reading about it earlier said that people thought it was a hoax because it's almost an exact copy of an actual hoax email that went around supposedly from a boss to employees. But no, it turns he confirmed to a reporter, like, no, yes, I did write it and all this stuff, and it is true. He saw the hoax email and he was like, this sounds good. I'll modify it a little bit and send it to all of my employees.
Let me do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, would you believe it? Romney did not win the 2012 election, and as it turns out, the corporate Democrats are just fine for business, and the economy rebounded, and he was able to continue to expand and grow the company, so much so that in 2014, two big milestones that I laid out here that I found interesting. The first is in 2014, he bought the Orlando Predators.
What a name.
Which was a football team in something called the AFL, which I guess was like an NFL knockoff, which doesn't exist anymore.
Isn't it the arena? Is it the arena?
Arena
football?
Arena Football League. And their mascot was the Predator from the the film franchise, The Predators.
Really?
Wait, really?
Yeah. Let me send you a picture.
No way.
Like Schwarzenegger Predator?
Yeah. But I mean, it had to be like legally distinct.
That's amazing.
But here, if you look at the mascot's name was Claw.
Okay.
And here's a picture of that.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So he bought the Orlando Predators, and also because the company had rebounded so much, and he was able to continue to expand, he felt so benevolent that he was going to raise the minimum wage at his company.
Oh.
Guess what he raised it to?
I don't know.
Take a guess.
$10 an hour.
It is that, yeah.
Is it?
It's $10 an hour, yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
What year was this?
2014.
What a guy.
He also, even though he had to sell the big flagship tower, he bought another gaudy thing in Las Vegas and made that the new like flagship thing.
Oh, really?
In the Westgate Resorts.
Does he still have the brightest sign on the strip?
No, that is one of the things he mentions in the documentary. He was like, I talked to my friend Donald Trump, and Donald Trump said, David, I love your business and everything, but now your sign is the brightest thing I get in my penthouse. That's all I can see and it was the brightest sign on the strip, and they had to.
He would not turn it down, but now it's dimmed forever.
Now it's gone, but yeah, now he
Bye-bye.
owns the Las Vegas Westgate Las Vegas Hotel is the one he was able to buy in that period. That's it. Nothing else happened.
Well,
I've seen a couple recent pictures of David Siegel, and he seems to be. He almost looks like again, like following in the footsteps of the robber barons who came before him. He seems almost like he's getting like a big red bulbous nose.
Oh,
like
yeah.
JP Morgan.
Yes,
You've
yeah,
noticed
for
this
sure.
too, right? Yeah, he's definitely getting that in the more recent pictures I've seen of him.
Yeah, in 2015, which was like, again, now this is like the rebound moment. They're in their height. One of their children, Victoria, who I guess at the time is probably around 18 years old, and she's featured in the documentary. You see her both at like 12 and 14,
her grow up a little,
I believe.
yeah.
Yeah, and you see her kind of like, develop some ideas and stuff. She died. She died of an overdose of drugs. I believe it was methadone and Zoloft.
We started watching a documentary that then Jackie made, right, called The Princess of Versailles, because after Victoria, who liked to be called Ricky, after Ricky died, they kind of really got into kind of like drug war stuff, and also like started a foundation called Victoria's Voice.
Yes.
And I had to just stop watching the documentary. I do not recommend watching it. It is just like kind of too much. But the thing that really stood out to me and kind of like also kind of gives you an idea of what the documentary might be like is that before she died, and it's not explicitly said that she did this intentionally, but she was having like some personal troubles, and then right before she died, she sent a text message to her ex-boyfriend to share with her mother if she died, and then, the same day she did die, where she said, maybe you can sell my teenage journal and use it to bump up your career. Like that was
Yes.
what she saw as like her value, was like, maybe her mother being able to get something out of it after she died. And she did. She published it, and I was reading some of the reviews of the book, which I think might have also been called Victoria's Voice, which is her journal interspersed with extremely irresponsible advice related to addiction. They published that, and then like one of the reviews said they give advice like, if you can't afford a 90-day program, don't even bother putting your kid in rehab, things of that nature. They styled themselves as like addiction experts without really knowing anything. I read a few like interviews that he did where he was saying like, nobody's talking about this. It's like 2016, 2017, and he's acting like he just discovered this problem for the first time and nobody else has ever talked about it. And then I think, Shane, you said he was trying to be like Trump's drug czar, which he did not get.
Right. So, I mean, again, it is a tragic thing, and if you watch the film, you get this sense of like, these young kids who have like, again, as we've stated, no real relationship with their parents. Yeah. A kind of very surface level understanding of like who they are and where they are in life, but they're trying to like figure themselves out, and then you figure out like the oldest daughter ODs, right, and possibly an intentional suicide, possibly not, and the reaction to it, like, again, and I think this is one of those hard things about intentionality, right? Because like you can look at it and see like what they did in the wake of this, and I don't think that they didn't actually feel grief. I think that they did,
of course, yeah.
But I think it's the way in which they process that grief is like the only way they knew how. So for the mom, that was to like spin this off into another way to like do like media stuff and be like in the news. And for the dad, it was like, I'm going to become in charge of this issue now. And he apparently, like, by all of the interviews with him, is like, he said, like, that was like the turning point in his life. Like, that's when he decided to turn things around, which again would have been like when he was 80.
He's like 80.
And he's like, now I'm going to.
He was like, there's no leader in this. God has called me to lead this.
That op-ed he wrote of his Trump endorsement, where he gets into like the drug war stuff at the end of it.
I mean, do you want to read?
I'm sure.
Let's go.
Yeah,
let's go.
Is that a good time for this?
Let's go.
Yeah,
okay,
please.
Let's go ahead.
Absolutely.
Let's read the Trump endorsement. Here we go. This is from the Orlando Sentinel, October 26, 2016, and this is an op-ed by David A. Siegel. Make Trump CEO of USA, Westgate's Siegel says. And this one is not as long as the Obama one, thank God. But this one begins, all right. There are so many reasons a Donald Trump presidency would be good for our country. This limited space is inadequate to list them all. It is about...
Let me enumerate all of the wonderful ways.
It is about time that a businessman with a business mentality becomes president. Someone who can analyze things the same way as we do every day in business, increasing efficiency and decreasing expenses, for example, or questioning if something is necessary and what it cost. Donald would assemble the greatest cabinet of any president in history. Instead of people who solely fit for political purposes, he would have the top business and professional people. Donald will build a great wall and keep out illegal immigrants and the plague of illegal drugs that enter from out of our country. Mm-hmm. He will vet the new immigrants coming into our country and ensure that only the best and brightest come to America. Donald will invest the money necessary to make sure our military continues to be the strongest in the world, and he will also make sure we treat our veterans with appreciation for the sacrifices they made for us. Donald Trump will lower tax. He never says Donald Trump, by the way. He says Donald. Every one of these begins with Donald.
He's best friends. Yeah.
My pal.
My friend Donald, my pal. Donald will lower taxes. Will lower taxes so businesses can invest the tax savings into expanding and creating more jobs. That would be great for our economy. He will bring back the billions of dollars that are being held by American companies overseas because of our high corporate tax rates. This investment and repatriation of corporate dollars will usher a massive wave of new job creation. Donald is a great negotiator. He is a hands-on guy who will make sure every agreement our country enters into is beneficial to us. Despite our country's stagnant economy, he has the know-how to implement policies to stimulate productivity. That productivity is the only thing that will allow us to begin to reduce our, here it is, baby, $20 trillion national debt. The fucking national deficit, baby. Something we don't want to leave to our children to worry about. Donald will get the inner cities working again. which will lower our crime rate. It is, and this is the part that really, this is the one that really struck me here. It is appalling that in the United States, where everyone in the world wants to live, we still have 43 million people on food stamps. And like, his problem with this, like this is not about reducing poverty. It's to get these fucking, slash the welfare state and kick these fucking greedy moochers off their fucking benefits. We need a new face in Washington to attack all these problems, and more of the same simply will not do. I believe Donald Trump can be that shining star, for no other reason than when you look at the wonderful family he has surrounding him, they are proof of what he can achieve. He has been a great father and role model to all of his children, and we would be lucky to have that leadership in the White House. By the way, the relationship, very strong parallels in the movie between like the relationship between like Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr.
Sure,
they have absolutely like no sort of close familial relationship. Going back to the article here, Donald is a man who only thinks quality in everything he builds and creates. A man who has created tens of thousands of direct jobs during his lifetime. America is now the largest business in the world, and Donald Trump will make a great CEO. I must have missed something here because here's the last paragraph, and I completely missed the part that I read earlier. Oh no, it's in this last paragraph. He saves the best part for the end. Okay. And last but certainly not least, our country is under attack, not by ISIS, Iran, Russia, or North Korea, but from the drug epidemic. 50,000 young people, our future generation, died from drug overdoses last year, and that number is rising by 10% every year. Many of those lives could have been saved if they would have access to naloxone, which can help immediately reverse the effects of drug overdose. The only good sentence in the entire fucking article here. It goes on to say 25 million Americans are addicted to drugs, and many states are making it worse by trying to legalize marijuana. Marijuana is the gateway to all drug addictions. If something isn't done soon, the drug epidemic will be the downfall of our country, and Donald Trump has pledged to use the weight of the presidency to end this epidemic once and for all. I am voting for Donald Trump because he will make America great again.
Yeah.
And he will also, by the way, maybe we can get into this here in a minute, but David Siegel and Westgate received, I've got one article that says they were approved for $18 million worth of PPP loans, the loans that were intended for small businesses when like COVID hit. But like this one article says that they were approved for $18 million, but that they sent the money back, that they didn't accept the money. And then another one says that they did accept at least some amount of money, but it's this is another article from the Orlando Sentinel from last year, and the headline of this one is David Siegel's Westgate timeshare company wanted to use government aid to promote its resorts, email shows. And then like the subject line of this email that's like mentioned in the article here is all caps. This is not a joke or a scam. We have federal money available to us at our company to hire temporary employees. And like supposedly they got this Westgate, David Siegel and Westgate got this money in these Paycheck Protection Program loans, these like COVID-19 loans, and like what they were apparently planning on using it for was to hire travel vloggers to like go to the company's resorts and like write stories and like create content like promoting their resorts. Like that's what they were going to use the PPP loan money for.
That seems legit.
Mm-hmm. It's legal, baby. Very legal and very cool.
Well, certainly. Yeah. I mean, with all the support that his longstanding friend, David gave him. I mean, Trump must have tapped him for that job that David was so eagerly gunning for, the drug czar of America.
He did not. He did
not. No, was he just a scumbag liar? like he's always been his entire life. Yeah.
Is drug czar even a thing? Who was?
I don't think anybody got appointed drug czar under Trump.
I thought I saw like a picture of him sitting with the drug czar.
His pick was Tom Marino. Tom Marino. I don't know who this guy is, but this was his pick. But Tom Marino withdrew his. I don't know.
What an L.
It wasn't
David
Siegel.
For David Siegel.
That's the only thing that matters. Yeah, big L.
Jim Carroll, director of the Office of National Drug Control Policy. That's who it was, I guess. There's like some picture of them together.
I mean,
But I love specifically the contrast in this like endorsement article of like like the contrast between these two sentences of like the very good and like up to date advice about increasing access to naloxone and stuff like that, and then the very next line is, and we must also restrict access to marijuana, the evil gateway drug.
I mean, it's a classic right-wing move where it's like, oh, my daughter, who I love so much, like died of an overdose of opioids, right? Like, the response to that is to make sure that marijuana does not become legal.
Right. And that's why that's why I'm going to ask for the death penalty for all Mexican drug traffickers.
And that he and his wife did successfully get, I think it was like the UCF police department, they now carry naloxone on them, which is objectively good. But then at the same time, he was trying to push for like mandatory drug testing at UCF, and UCF was like, this is unconstitutional. We can't do that. And then he said, well, I'll finance my own fight all the way up to the Supreme Court to get drug testing in every college. So it's just like, he's crazy. Like,
for what? In college for what? Like for students? Just to drug test students?
Like just to drug test every student. He wants every student to be tested. That's how he's going to save everybody.
I mean, the other side of this as well is that, like, during this period, which is ostensibly the period in which David has taken a backseat to the business and he's focused all of his efforts on this, and in that documentary we watched by Jackie, he says something like, he used to have like a stack of papers that was like all my work papers, and that represented money, and then I had a stack of now I have a stack of papers that represent, that are all about like addiction and drug problems. And for me, those represent lives. So now when I go into the office, I don't even read the money things. I just read the lives papers, right? Like I'm trying to figure out how's it best to save lives, right? Like, ostensibly, okay, whatever. Late turn in life, personal trauma. This would affect your psyche, make you think that this is important to do, which is why, like, at that point you might think, like, what, let me take a back seat from the media spotlight. Let me not try to, like, leverage this weird amount of attention that I got from this documentary that I hate, that I sued the filmmakers for about how much they lied about me. Like, I'm never gonna do that kind of stuff again. I'm just gonna focus on this philanthropy, and that's why I'm gonna go on Celebrity Wife Swap.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's why I'm going to go on
Below Deck.
Below Deck, which unfortunately, Dwight, we miss you. We wish you all of the best in your adventures in the Levant at this time. I mean, they've been, again, percolating in this kind of like reality TV zone in the intervening years since the documentary came out. And just as a little fun fact that I forgot to bring up when I was talking about his early life, David Siegel actually produced a film in 2002 called Night Terror, in which he also played the role of a policeman, and it's some kind of horror movie that's set at Mystery Funhouse. Mystery Funhouse was closed down in 2001, and I read something on probably the Wikipedia that was just saying, like, it was then turned into Westgate's Resort's like sales office. And then after Hurricane Irina, it's just like a defunct building. Like,
Grandpa Munster lives there.
So sad. Bye. But yeah, I mean, they've continued to try to leverage this little moment in the spotlight they had into reality TV appearances, and apparently, and this was like the real soul crushing thing I read, as of February 2021. Jackie Siegel, like, they've resumed work on the house finally.
Yes.
They're back at it. After being derelict and abandoned for many years, they're back at it. And apparently she's like filming a TV show as they complete the house. And its estimated completion date right now is sometime in 2022. So we have that to look forward to. It's a dream 20 years in the making. The gaudiest piece of shit in America. And they're still plugging at it, dude. They're still going for it.
Well, I'll definitely watch the show.
Oh, absolutely. We'll do a follow-up when the show comes out,
I still hope that like that show ends with somebody else like buying the property.
Sure, right.
the house.
It could happen.
It could happen. I hope it does.
You never know.
It'd
You
be
never
pretty
know.
funny if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, the house is still out there, it could still be completed. And, I just want to say to our buddy Dwight, who's out there, again, he's somewhere undisclosed location in the Middle East. But if you happen to find yourself in Orlando, I would just like to say the following: Longing, Rusted, 17, Daybreak, Furnace, 9, Benign, Homecoming, 1, Freight Car. And I believe you'll know what that means right? When you hear that. Hopefully that will activate something in you. And you'll get at it.
That's a show.
That's the show.
There's no happy ending. These rich people stay rich.
No, the movie, this film just really was grim. It was very depressing.
It was very grim. I mean,
I couldn't even watch the second one, the one about the daughter. I could not watch that.
I have a pretty high tolerance, and I had to turn it off at the part where they actually had like a camera crew filming like her talking to the daughter in the casket. It was too much.
Yeah,
a
bit much. I think the one thing that happened in that documentary that I think was the moment we paused it is at like one point after the funeral and after the birthday party that they hold like a birthday party for her after she's dead.
Yeah.
After all of that, like Jackie is driving. Well, she's not driving. Somebody's driving her to like the Miss America contest or whatever. And she's like, I want to have a snack. Let's stop at McDonald's. So they pull into McDonald's and she says, I want to have, chicken nuggets and a Big Mac. And the person on the other end is like, we don't serve lunch till 11 o'clock. And she says, but it's 10:30. You always serve lunch at 10:30. And she says, no, it's 11 o'clock. And she gets into this fight with the person on the other side.
She's like, I went out of my way.
I drove
my favorite McDonald's.
out of here to go to the best McDonald's. And you're telling me I can't have lunch. When was this policy made? And the poor person on the other side of the thing who's making minimum wage, she's like, I don't know what to tell you, ma'am. We don't have lunch. And she's like, fine, well, I'll get a hash brown and I'm not happy about it. And then they drive up to the window. She goes to pay with a credit card for one hash brown. She pays with a credit card. It gets declined. She's like, that's so weird. Then she goes through her like little fucking Rolodex of credit cards. She finds another one, goes through, and she goes, oh, I see. It got declined because this is Ricky's credit card that I'm holding on to for like emotional value. And what's astounding about this is two things. Like, first of all, it's very clear that this is a Jackie Siegel joint.
She made this movie.
Right.
She did this as a like, I'm going to do this performative thing where I show like how attached I still am to my daughter.
I saved her credit card.
And it was like clearly like a staged thing. But also she kept in the 5 minutes of her arguing with the drive-through window person at McDonald's. Saying like,
it's so bizarre.
Why can't I have a Big Mac at 10:30?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the defining scene in the documentary she made about her daughter dying.
Yeah. And again, I do believe that her grief is like real.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
This
is how she knows how to process it.
This is the only way she knows how to process it.
Yeah.
And that is like deeply, it's so dark. It's so dark.
It's really just a window to the dark side. It's just like staring
to
at
a point that I don't even want to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tune in to watch The Queen of Versailles on Bravo TV in 2022, where she finishes building her house.
And,
I guess.
Dear listener, thank you for sticking with us on this one. I don't know if it's as affecting. Again, if you watch all this material and you see it, perhaps you'll get a sense of what we're saying. And, in conclusion, what more can I say to you, dear listener, than longing, rusted, 17, daybreak, furnace, 9, benign, homecoming, 1, freight car.
Cut him off. Cut his mic.
Do it.
Cut his mic.
Do it.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right. Good.
All right.
See you next time.
Love you. Bye.
Heavenly Father, where will I go on my mission? Will it be China or old Mexico on my mission? It could be San Fran by the bay, Australia where they say g'day, but I pray I'm sent to my favorite place.